What's up, everyone? I'm sick. So I decided it would be a good idea to just make a video that's not very researched and very off the cuff of just talking about something that I'm very passionate about. I had stuff I was going to say for this intro, but now I don't remember what it was. Oh, right, that's it. I'm not just sick, I most likely have COVID. And on that note, hey everyone. Hey guys, anyone watching this? Get vaccinated, please. I did. And because I'm vaccinated, I'm lucky that it won't be as bad or as long, but because other people won't get vaccinated, now we have to deal with what the world is now. And I can't taste anything. Well, I guess kind of, but like barely. This doesn't taste good, I'll tell you that. And it tastes okay. Anyway, I'm a little delirious. I'm going to talk about the inherent homoeroticism of classical Greek sculpture and how that is carried into academia as a whole thanks to the Romans and the Renaissance. I shouldn't say thanks to the Romans. The Romans kind of they did a lot. So when you just Google classical sculpture, immediately you're getting gay stuff. Like, it might not immediately read as gay stuff, but trust me, it's there. And it's gay because it's like, you know, the Greeks had this thing, especially depicting like myths and like divine beings and stuff, that like it had to be like beautiful, right? Because like they're exalted great beings that you want to honor. And like that's not specific to the Greeks, that's like, you know, pretty much every culture, probably. The way that they went about this was very much like, oh, let's depict what we want to look at and what's beautiful. And what the sculptors wanted to look at was the naked young boys that are naked young men that are all muscly and stuff and posing and making faces. You can make a point that's like, we can't put our modern lens of beauty and sexuality on an ancient culture thousands of years ago. That's very true, and there is a problem with doing that, because you have to acknowledge the context of the time instead of just putting our 21st century lens on everything else. And in the context of the time, it was still gay. Because the Greeks, oh man, I mean, they had all those different types of love, right? And there was a belief that only two men could experience every type of love for each other. I'm talking every type of love for each other. So the bond between two men was like stronger than anything else. And like, I guess it's kind of like, you know, bros, but also, I mean, it's not, they're more than just bros. I mean, it's every type of love. It's the strongest bond possible. And that includes like romantic and sexual love, of course. They even had this belief that like if a man in the army was fighting to impress his boyfriend, he would fight better. So it was like encouraged, right? So like that's how normalized like it was in Greek society. And like, anyway, there's three arts that I'm going to talk about here in particular. Well, One of them's a category, but it's fine. And the first one is Kritios Boy. And he has been called by an art historian the first beautiful nude in art. So that's quite loaded. But Kritios Boy, he is like significant for a bunch of reasons. He's kind of that shift out of the archaic period into like the Hellenistic period. Because you can like compare him to Kurt, that other one. Yeah. And like he's like got some contrapposto. This is just when contrapposto was starting to become a thing. And like he has like more form and he's more like fleshed out. He's not as stiff, and it's kind of that movement away from the sort of like Egyptian type art. But also, more to the point, he like was meant to embody like beauty, right? And he shows like the Greek standard of beauty at the time, which is a nude young man. I mean, look at him. Like, he's attractive. And like, that's not just through a modern lens. Like, he was made to be attractive. He kind of set, I guess he didn't, but this was the beginning of that standard of beauty being set. So like, another thing about Kritios, you know, something that's kind of like a running joke with like classical sculpture is they got some pretty small business, and like to our modern lens that seems like you don't want that. But back in the classical days, like that was seen as like attractive, like sexually attractive. Because like that shows that you're like an intellectual and you're not controlled by your base physical desires or whatever. You know, it's all in the brain. You work out at the library. And they were all just a bunch of sapiosexuals, really. My card ran out of space, but back now. Anyway, as I was saying, there is clear evidence that it is not just beauty from an artistic or you know, just purely like divine or whatever standpoint. Like, it is also including sexual attractiveness within the classical sculpture and what they wanted to see and what they deemed that standard to be. The kind of genre of sculpture that I wanted to talk about is the wrestling. I don't think there's any way you can look at these and not see them as just a little fruity. Again, there's the whole thing that I said about not projecting our modern lens onto things from thousands of years ago, but like, come on. You know, I already said there's like all of this evidence and within art itself and within writings that I didn't do all the research on to talk about right now, but I'll probably talk about it at some point in a different video. Just trust me right now. I'm sick and I'm drinking Gatorade out of a chalice. Just give me a little leeway here. I'm not gonna have all the answers for you. But there is plenty of historical evidence that these wrestling sculptures are, you know, they're portraying the the peak of masculinity within this society. And the peak of masculinity is getting oiled up and naked and rolling around with another oiled up naked dude. That's what it was. You know? I mean, they started the Olympics. This is what it was. And not only was it what they did, but it was significant enough that there is a lot of sculpture made of it. And like, making sculpture of that isn't an easy task, especially back in the day. And I mean, there was whole schools dedicated to this stuff. It was a big deal. Like, two muscly men getting oiled up, that was a big deal to them. And these were male sculptors that were sculpting these. And this was what they wanted to put out into the world. And good on them, really. I think if I keep talking about the wrestling ones, I'm just going to end up repeating myself, because what can you really say about them? They speak for themselves, really. The last art that I wanted to talk about is honestly one of my favorite pieces. And he is the Barberini Faun. Now, the Barberini Faun is pretty well known to be a kind of erotic sculpture. And it is obvious why, with the pose and the expression. There is this, idea that you're coming upon this sleeping faun somewhere in the woods and whatever. The original sculptor of the Barberini Faun is an unknown Hellenistic sculpture, as far as I know. They may have, I don't know if there's anything more known about that, but the original sculptor is either an unknown Hellenistic sculptor or a very, very good Roman copy, but it's likely the former. And then this sculpture was found many, many years later by Barberini, an artist in the Renaissance. I have seen his style described as flamboyant, which I find hilarious. So Barberini found like the pieces of this sculpture. It was pretty worn down, and he kind of restored it. It's just, it does really go to show that this like obsession with like the classics and how like intellectual and academic they are. It was guys that wanted to sculpt hot guys, and this is what our society and the Renaissance society especially was deeming as like the height of, it's intellectualism. And yeah, the Greeks were also obsessed with intellectualism. I went on about the, but it lost that context. And that, where was I going? But it didn't lose that context for everyone per se, because, shocker, there were gay people in the Renaissance, and one of those people was Mr. Da Vinci himself. You look at the Peruvian man, it's like this is mathematically calculating what the most beautiful human is, and the most beautiful human is this guy, this young man, this attractive young man who looks very much like the attractive young men in classical art, which were made to be sexy. And, Da Vinci did a lot of plotting out mathematically what is the perfect human. And the basis for the perfect human was very much influenced by the fact that Da Vinci was attracted to men. This brings us all the way back to Kritios Boy, who also was part of this mathematical plotting out of what the ideal beautiful human is, which was based around men who liked men. And there's a lot of stuff to go into about, you know, how this plays into misogyny, and, you know, part of the reason that men could have like the strongest bond possible was because women just weren't capable of having that kind of bond, which is, I shouldn't need to tell you that that's dumb and wrong, and that's for some other video, some other time. I don't have the energy to talk about that right now. But anyway, I don't know that I really had anything else to say. I feel like I had so much more to, like, that I wanted to talk about going into this, but maybe I just forgot it all because I don't feel well. I'm gonna need more unlabeled electrolyte juice to get through this one, I swear to God. Anyway, I guess my thesis statement is humans have always been humans. Humans have always been gay. And that's that. And get vaccinated. Please. So I'm going to talk about, one of the cats is trying to destroy the tree behind me. I was going to look some stuff up just a little bit to try and structure this a little, but I decided let's just go for it. Let's just record. I Googled a couple things to make sure I knew what I wanted to talk about, but I didn't do anything other than that. And I don't know if that was a good decision or not, but it's a decision I made. I need to find my train of thought again.